Welcome to the Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin podcast. We present cold case crimes that we feel can and should be solved with your help. We provide the facts of the case and the research that we have done. Then web sleuths like you help us solve the mystery and provide the victim, family, community, and law enforcement with justice and peace of mind. This is Solve Crimes. Welcome to Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin. I am Rick Tracewell.
Gavin Fish here.
How's it going, Gavin?
Good. Did you have a good weekend? Easter weekend?
I did, yeah. Nice weather out here. I don't know how it was.
Yeah, it was nice.
Where you were? Good.
Here in Pennsylvania, yep. It's a beautiful time of year. Glad to be able to get outside and not have to slog through snow.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about that.
You don't have to shovel snow out there in Northern California?
No, we have to shovel other stuff. I think that's everywhere. So we're 3 weeks in a row. We're staying on top of this podcast thing. We're committed to making sure we're providing good new content on this thing.
And following up on some of the things that are happening on our YouTube channel, which I don't know why it continues to surprise me, movement that happens every time that we publish a video or talk about something new.
I think it's because you were surprised overall, because I remember telling you, we're going to get people calling us, and you're like, shh.
I know.
But I am too. It's just really, it's amazing I think people are genuinely moved by these cases and the victims, and so they reach out, and I think we're easier to reach out to than the police.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this podcast and you have a case that you want us to take a look at, or
please
something
don't call.
about...
We're overloaded, man. What are you doing?
No. Go to our website, solvecrimes.tv. There is a contact us form. We call it our clue tip form. And you can remain completely anonymous, or you can give us your contact information, however you want to do it. And we look at each one of those.
Oh, wait, that's Q-tip.
That's a Q-tip.
Not a clue tip. Okay, got it.
That's right. So, please reach out to us if there's something you want us to be talking about. Today, Rick, I wanted to kind of go over some of the things that happened since we published our last episode on the Amanda Wienckowski case in Buffalo, New York.
Yes. When do we publish that? Thursday?
We published that Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, in this latest episode, we talked about, basically, we believe that Amanda Wienckowski was hit with a handheld stun gun prior to her death.
Yep.
And that the Erie County Medical Examiner's office completely ignored that, or they couldn't see it. Whichever. And
we had the venerable Kenny Clark on the show.
We did. Dr. Clark. Listen, guys, that guy is so impressive. And actually, let me say this too. Dr. Clark is a quadruple certified forensic pathologist. He's certified in forensic pathology, clinical pathology, anatomic pathology, and neuropathology. The guy's amazing, and he teaches pathology in colleges, right, at Syracuse University of SUNY, upstate New York. So, and then of course, the thing that I really love about him, Rick, is that he's an electrical engineer, and when I talk about my nerdy sound things. He knows what I'm talking about. It's pretty cool.
Plus, I think he knits. I mean, he just does everything.
He probably makes stocking caps for the homeless.
I know. No, we got those big old giant stockings for Christmas that he made us. Remember?
We did full body size. Yeah, my wife thought it was kind of strange, but yeah, we had to hang it from the ceiling instead of the mantle. I don't think he sleeps. No, he's pretty great. But he told us exactly what we would need to do to prove that Amanda Wienckowski was stunned with a stun gun, and it will require that we exhume her body a second time. And we hope, there's no guarantee, we hope that she was well enough preserved when the funeral home embalmed her, that we'll be able to take a biopsy of the
This
skin on
isn't
her
something
face.
that we're going against anybody's wishes. Her Leslie, Amanda's mom, is on board. I mean, she, as you can imagine, she whatever it takes to get this across the finish line.
I
for
didn't
her.
even ask her if she was willing to do it. I was just describing what it would take to do it, and she was like, "Let's do this."
Exactly. Yeah.
It was like that.
It's super hard. It's not a, just as human beings, it's not a fun thing to think about. But we're, there's a mission here, and there's things we need to do to get that done.
So we announced in our video that it's going to cost many thousands of dollars for us to exhume Amanda, to have her tested, to reinter her. There's probably going to be a new casket, a new vault, all that stuff that will have to be done. So it'll be many thousands of dollars.
And we do not want to put that on Leslie.
Correct. So we're raising money, and we're doing so by selling a limited edition treated like trash shirt. Yeah. It comes in royal blue. It's the same color as the trash can she was found in. And you can find that at solvecrimes.tv. Just click on shop and you'll find it there.
Yep.
And the response, Kenny, when it's been terrific.
Yeah.
So
immediately we were seeing orders for the shirts, and
we've made a good dent. I think that we've raised about 20% of what we'll need.
Already. Just in the first weekend.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody.
Yep.
And if you want to support that effort, and if you want to support Rick and I, there's other stuff that you can buy there in the merchandise shop. Yeah. If you want a fancy mug.
I already got a fancy mug.
Your mug
this is
is
a podcast.
fancy.
You can't see it.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're grateful for people. But
Yeah, so that was a good response that we got on there.
Wanted to go over some of the things, some of the tips that happened in the wake of the new video.
Yes. There's some interesting movement there.
Yeah. So where should I start? Why don't we start at Dr. Vertis?
Okay.
Okay. So guys, Diane Vertis, MD, is the pathologist. She was the medical examiner that examined Amanda's body and performed that autopsy. She is the one that, in my opinion, did a really sloppy job. I think that the autopsy report that she wrote was cut and paste. She wrote in things like Amanda suffered from chronic hepatitis. And I think that was in there because many heroin addicts suffer from chronic hepatitis. But when Dr. Comparini tested for hepatitis, there was nothing in those slides to...
Again, copy-paste, right?
Yeah, I think it was just a copy-paste, get this thing done.
I mean, there's so many things that even just recently in the last month that we've learned, as far as like the temperature of the body and that kind of thing, when you're supposed to do things and when you're supposed to photograph things and et cetera.
Yeah, it was just really sloppy. And I know that it bothers Leslie when we ignore the conspiracy, because I lean more that direction, that there was some kind of conspiracy. But beyond that, it was also just really terrible work.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dr. Vertis is the medical examiner that examined Amanda, and we got a clue tip form submission that said that we should look at another case in Buffalo where Dr. Vertis was the medical examiner. And by the way, there's no shortage of controversial cases in Buffalo, New York, with Diane Vertis' signature on them.
And we should also say, just as an aside, that if somebody didn't catch it in the first video with Kenny, Kenny actually worked with Dr. Vertis. Not super closely, but they worked in the same department, I believe, right?
Yeah, they were in Syracuse. I think she was like the weekend medical examiner.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, he knows her. He doesn't have anything bad to say about her. He thinks that she's a decent enough, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he didn't have anything bad to say about her personally.
Well, based on his interaction with her, which was kind of limited, he said. I think she did weekends, and he was, every once in a while in there doing paperwork. But and it could very well be, we should be straight up, it could very well be that the system in Buffalo is corrupt, and she joined the team.
Or she is a pawn, and she had no control.
Exactly.
Over any of
because
that
that was the other thing that Kenny said, is that he has seen those situations in major cities and not major cities where the politics gets involved, right? And it pressures the MEs to do stuff that they don't want to do.
And they put 19, 20, 21 years of education into their career. And if they run afoul of one selfish or corrupt politician, all of that goes out the window.
Their whole career, right?
Correct. Their families, the whole thing. So, it's certainly possible that Dr. Verdes is just a pawn.
This may be a whole new series for us, Gavin. The corrupt politicians ruining the MEs around the country. Who knows?
Yeah. Most people probably don't know this. I didn't know it. Kenny told us in the United States, there's only like 400 certified forensic pathologists in the entire United States.
Yep.
And they tend to be underpaid for the amount of work that they're asked to do. And they do it because, I talked with Kenny about this. I asked him about it. I asked him if he's ever been like grossed out or anything like that during an autopsy. And for him, it's an almost religious experience. The way he described it was there are two events in your life that are the most important events of your life, your birth and your death. And we owe it to people who die under mysterious circumstances to know that the way they died for the purpose of treating them like a human being.
I think the stuff that grossed him out was the politics.
Yeah, that stuff really bothered him, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so people go into forensic pathology, I think, mostly for the best reasons.
Yep.
And there are few that do it because it's a hard path in medicine and it's underappreciated and underpaid.
And occasionally you get stiffed. Sorry.
But okay,
kind of
so
a dead end job, really, if you think about it.
No, keep going.
No, don't let me keep going. I've had caffeine. And it's just not a good thing.
You're killing me, Tracewell. Okay. So somebody said we ought to take a look at this other case, and I want to give you the highlights of it.
And that just came in, didn't it?
Yeah, in March. It was March 18 of 2021 that it was reported, but the death happened.
The tip came in just recently.
Yeah, the tip just came in.
Okay.
And they pointed us to an article and a video. And what happened was back in October of 2012, a Catholic priest was found dead in his rectory. His name is Father Joseph Moreno. Rick is trying really hard not to laugh on microphone. Rectory, Rick. That is not even closely related to the anus like you think it is.
Shit. Here we go with the anus.
A rectory.
I'm sorry.
All right. He was found dead in his recliner, basically in his office, with a gunshot wound to the left side of his head. It was kind of behind and below his ear. The gun was found like between his leg and the arm of his recliner. And
on the floor.
Anyway, it was not on the floor. It was in the chair. It was, right? And his hand was found on his lap. Now, what's suspicious about this is that
there's a lot of suspicious stuff based on what you told me.
Father Joseph Moreno, first of all, was right-handed. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you... Oh, I skipped over one part. Dr. Diane Verdes ruled this a suicide. Okay. All right. So suicide ruled by the ME in Buffalo, New York. Now, here's the weird stuff. Father Moreno was right-handed, which typically a right-handed person would kill themselves with their right hand if they're right-hand dominant. Typically on the right side of their head, or they will put it in their mouth, or they will shoot themselves through the chin. Yeah.
And I believe it's damn near 100% right-handed on the right side, by the way. That's
it's
my
close.
Guess.
Yeah. It's possible. Like I've talked with another pathologist who says, no, if you're right-hand dominant, you can kill yourself with your left hand. You might be thinking...
possible, yes. But typically not.
Typically not. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and there's another thing though, right?
But the other thing is, about 6 years prior to his death, Father Moreno was attacked in his church by a man with a knife that cut his arm and hand so severely that it cut nerves deep. and he lost use basically of his left hand. I mean, he could move it. He could move his arm. He could put his hand in his pocket, for example.
Yeah. Well, you gave a good example. Anybody who's over 30, go ahead and give the example.
What did I say? Like Bob Dole? Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody
Like,
under 30 is not going to know who that is.
He could grab a pen,
Well, that's what he used to do, was hold the pen. Yeah.
He would hold a pen in his fist.
Yeah.
So that people would shake his right hand instead of his left hand,
Yeah.
right?
And so he could give autographs quicker. That's just a guess.
No. So anyway, that was the case with Father Moreno. He had no real use of his left hand. So
you don't have to be a pathologist to see that that's probably not how it happened.
And what Dr. Vertis said was, when the police brought her the body, they said, this is a suicide. And
any good pathologist knows that's not a good enough excuse. You start
medical
over.
examiners are supposed to examine what the police have as part of their examination.
Sure.
But you don't just depend on a cop coming in and say, hey, we got a suicide for you here, doc.
Didn't somebody say to us recently in an interview with us that that they typically look at it as a murder first and try to rule it out when it's something that could be a murder?
In some situations where it's like, hey, this is kind of weird. Right. Let's start at murder and try to exclude it. I think that was Kenny that told us that.
Might be Kenny, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if Father Moreno killed himself, then he wrapped his right hand around his head and held the gun. Now, if you're and held the gun behind his ear and shot himself so that the gun fired forward into his head.
And the muzzle was against the skin, right?
The muzzle was against the skin and it was upright. So like the sight imprint was facing up.
I mean, it's the podcast, so they can't see what you're doing, Gavin. But
yeah,
but it's, for those of you listening, it looks cartoonish and ridiculous. There's just no way he would be able to do that. And we don't even know. I mean, how big of a gun are we talking about, too?
It was like a .38 revolver.
Okay. Yeah.
So it wasn't like a single action army from the 1800s or anything. Oh,
right.
But here's the other thing about that gun. Let me tell you about this gun. That gun was found by one of his parishioners.
Okay.
And that parishioner brought the gun into Father Moreno to turn into police, which he did. And he was shot with that gun.
Oh. Buffalo.
Now, why would a Buffalo priest be shot? Well, Father Moreno was disgusted by all the sexual abuse that had been happening in the Catholic Church, and he knew about what was happening in the diocese, and he was a whistleblower and was about to go public with all of his information when he was shot, and his office was cleared out by a deacon in the church prior to the police showing up. So all of those files went away.
I tell you.
Anyway, Buffalo, dude.
Seriously.
Buffalo.
And Vertis,
yeah. Now, here's the other thing is Vertis promised the twin sister of Father Moreno that if she could prove medically that he couldn't use his left hand, that she would change the cause of death to homicide. The Catholic Church, it was Catholic insurance that addressed Father Moreno when he was injured. They would not release his information to the sister, and then Dr. Vertis inexplicably and suddenly retired in 2013. So, guys, there's just so much going on in the city of Buffalo that is so
really
just corrupt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But so there's something else that came in.
When did that happen then? It happened
2012.
2012, okay.
So Vertis was the
tip
chief
that came
medical
in was,
examiner.
hey, you should look into this one too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what? Here's one of those things that we have to be careful about. The tip came in and said, hey, he found there were 2 gunshot wounds to his head. Right? Okay, so somebody played a game of telephone a million times. Mm-hmm. There were not 2 gunshot wounds to his head. There was 1 gunshot wound to his head. You don't have to make things more salacious than they already are.
People do.
But yeah, there was no way he could have committed suicide, and Dr. Vertis either voluntarily or was forced to kind of play along with that. Pretty terrible.
And that, it again, you and I are both on the same page, I think here. We we do understand logically that conspiracies do happen. We just don't like to jump to those first because you get your thinking gets skewed when you do that, you know?
Correct.
So, and we've not done that with Amanda, even though we've had a lot of people that, you know, had for years prior to our getting involved, had thought that it was a conspiracy, and they were kind of putting that out there to us, and we kind of refused and went, no, let us figure this out on our own. But we both have to admit there are some pretty squirrely things going on in Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm always fighting. Like internally, I have a struggle, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always fighting against the desire to just go, okay, this is a full blown conspiracy.
Exactly,
I'm always fighting against that. But the cameras that disappeared, and you know all the
cameras,
DNA and all the stuff, not following up on tips. The Buffalo PD knew about Kelvin Jackson from day one. Mm-hmm. Kelvin Jackson was a acquaintance / friend of Antoine Garner's, who Antoine called 4 times the night of December 5th and asked if he could ask another friend for Antoine to borrow his truck. Yeah. And Kelvin goes, "You call him, man. I don't need to be calling him this. Yeah. Why do you even need a truck anyway?" "Oh, I need to move." You don't own anything. What do you mean you need to move? There's nothing that you own. So, anyway, they knew about Kelvin Jackson. They never talked to him.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, right? That just bothers me so
and
bad.
The building next to the church where her body was found, the cameras, the footage from the security cameras that were aimed right there disappeared, and then it turns out that it's the building's, you know, at least co-owned.
It's contracted by the city of Buffalo. Yeah.
And the mayor.
Yeah. So that sort of stuff, it just kills me.
But the fact is there are corrupt politicians. There are corrupt situations. There are a lot of, people who, because I'm immediately picturing that if there was some stuff that Father Moreno was discovering, it could very easily lead to some famous people who would be caught up in all that.
Dude, the DA at the time of that case is a guy named John Flynn. He's still the DA.
Yeah.
The lawyer that defended the Catholic Church, the Buffalo Diocese of the Catholic Church, in those cases, was a big contributor to the campaign of John Flynn. Right, and he refused to look at the cases.
You've heard that phrase, "follow the money," right?
Yeah, it really is
true.
So bad.
Yeah, it is. It is true.
So, yeah, okay. So, moving on to other stuff.
There's other stuff.
We got a comment on that last video that I think I'm going to read it because I can't. Okay, so this is about the stun gun video. "It's so sad that this case has been treated the way it is. Everybody knows that Amanda was murdered, even the police and homicide detectives. The homicide detectives were told to step back. I know this because I took care of a captain who was very sick. His son was a homicide detective who worked on the case. He was sick over this and retired. It was very hard for him to even say he worked on her case and was then told no more investigating." And that's something, we've been told that multiple times, that at some point in the investigation, everybody was told, drop it.
I mean, at the very least, it was after the ME's report came out saying it was not a murder, right?
Well, some people have even said that when they were beginning on January 10th to begin to do the autopsy, somebody came in and cleared the room and said, "There's nothing to see here. This was an accident." So, there were detectives working on the case in the room to witness the autopsy, and they were ordered out by some unknown individual. And the person who said that, I'm not going to say his name, because when he told us that, he was a Buffalo detective. Mm-hmm. And he said that I will never repeat again what I'm telling you now unless it's on, I'm on the witness stand and you subpoena me. If you subpoena me and depose me, I will tell you everything. Mm-hmm. But
well, we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting close.
We may actually get there one day. That'd be incredible.
Yeah, I've even talked to well, I don't want to say who this person is, or how they know this, but let's just say that this person was in the company of Byron Brown, Mayor Byron Brown, and who they call Junior, who is Byron Brown III, his son. Mm-hmm. He was in their company when the mayor ordered his son to get out of town at the time that they were investigating.
Now, am I right death. Am I correct in remembering that that Junior was a known acquaintance of Antoine's? Or is that kind of a gray area?
So I haven't been able to corroborate that. I've been told that, but there's no evidence linking.
We were also told a lot of other things too.
Correct. So unless something is proven, I tend not to repeat it, even though just now I repeated something that is unproven.
Do as I say, not as I do.
That's right. So, but I'm only doing that to show you that there's multiple people who have told us this same thing.
Right.
I know of another person who we're trying to get him on camera for our other project, where he worked at the Erie County Medical Examiner's office and was so upset with how horribly the place was run at the time in 2008, how horribly the place was run and how political it was, that he retired. He left, and he left in like October, whatever that is, 2.5, 3 months before Amanda died.
Well, and let's I think we can, I think we can say this, that there's still stuff squirrely going on. I mean, Amanda's mom, Leslie, just recently, a week ago?
Yeah.
Went to the ME's office to present them with some paperwork and was practically throwing the National Guard at her.
Yeah, actually, this is going to be our next episode, so let's give everybody a preview on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically what's happening here is there are 3 government agencies that all have their fingerprints are all over Amanda's case.
Yeah.
The first is the most obvious, which is the Buffalo Police, right? They're the investigative arm of that. The second is the district attorney's office. They are also investigative, but they're prosecutorial mainly. And then the ME's office is the third. They're the ones who do the medical examinations. Okay. There's a law in the state of New York. There are probably similar laws in other states where if there's new evidence, you have to submit that evidence to the appropriate office, the agency that's in charge of that, in a certain amount of time, and if they don't do anything with it, you have the right to force them to do it. It's called an Article 78. It's a lawsuit, and you basically are saying, hey, you're acting arbitrarily and capriciously with the evidence that I gave you, and then the court would, if you win that suit, the court forces that agency to look into it, right? But if you don't do that within like 120 days...
Yeah, that's the thing. How ridiculous is... how do they expect someone who's the average Joe, and I'm talking about you and I, Leslie, anybody, right? If something like that happens, how do you have the fortitude and the knowledge to figure stuff like that out in that short of amount of time?
Yes, and in
evidence
the law,
comes up. Obviously, we found that, multiple times.
Written into the law says that ignorance of something is not like ignorance of evidence.
Yeah.
If you have the evidence, but you don't know you have the evidence, ignorance of the evidence does not reset that time limit. You have a duty to know the evidence, understand the evidence, and submit it,
as
right?
a citizen.
Yes, as a layperson.
BS.
It is. It's crap. So, okay.
There should be a procedure to, at least have some type of a hearing or something,
Correct.
But there isn't.
So we
need to bring back the inquest. That's what we need to bring back.
The coroner's inquest. Yes. We need that in the state of New York.
Yeah.
Okay, so we found out about the 6-monoacetylmorphine being important in February of this year, basically, right? On February 11th is when we got an expert opinion in. And that was basically, there's an argument to be made that on February 11th, that's when that 120-day countdown starts. Okay, so on February 13th, we presented that evidence, written and verbal, in written form and verbally, to the senior chief investigator of the district attorney's office,
right?
Mark Vaughn.
Yep.
He then said, I only need 2 weeks to investigate this. And we gave him two pieces to investigate, the 6-monoacetylmorphine and Kelvin Jackson, right?
Right.
Okay. Then he proceeded to ghost us. We gave him 2 weeks, and then I called him. Yep. And then I called him. And then I called him. Then I texted him.
You
and
recorded
I called
every
him.
one of those, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. It's like, and he just completely ghosted us until finally we're way past a month later. He responded with a, hey, Gavin, sorry, whatever excuse. I ran it up the flagpole. And then I texted back, hey, thanks for getting back to me, Mark. What does running up the flagpole mean? And ghost again. I got nothing from him. Okay. All right.
It's like you're dating him.
Yeah, it's the worst. All right. So then we go, okay, well, let's go to the Buffalo PD. And when we look into the Buffalo PD files, there is an investigator named Mary Evans who, to us, looks like the one who is the most conscientious about this. She worked the case a long time and followed up on leads for a long time. And when I talked with another former police officer named Joe Scarpina, he told me, you should call Mary Evans because she cares. I went, great, I will. And I left her a message that I thought was like if I were a fisherman, it was the perfect bait. Like I did not mention Amanda Wienckowski. I didn't mention anything. I just was like, hey, Mary, my name's Gavin. I'm an independent journalist. I have some information. You may have won the
lottery. Please call me.
I have some information for you. And Joe Scarpina from the New York State Trooper says, you're the person I need to talk to and that you will care about this. And I left that voicemail and ring. A couple hours later, she called me back.
Yep.
Okay. So now I'm not bad-mouthing Mary at all because I do think that she cares and I do think that she's conscientious, but I also think that her hands are tied on this. So what did she tell? She told me this needs to go to the medical examiner's office. I went, okay, I'll go to the medical examiner's office. So I write up a cover letter for Dr. Simon's report, and Leslie says, I'll take it to the medical examiner's office. She goes and gets it notarized, puts it in an envelope, goes to the medical examiner's office, and delivers this manila envelope. And the woman at the front desk, you saw the video, Rick, right?
I actually have not. I will watch
Oh,
it.
you haven't? Okay.
No, I will.
She was helpful. Like, she's like, what can I do for you?
Probably
How can I
didn't know
help?
the history of it.
Yeah, the whole thing. How can I help? Okay. Yeah. And she takes the manila envelope and then she disappears into the back. A few minutes later, she comes back and she hands the envelope back to Leslie. I wish Leslie hadn't taken it back.
I know.
And then goes,
because they had already taken custody of it.
We're not taking delivery of this. You need to talk to our lawyer. And if you don't leave, we're calling the police.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
It was just like that. And guess what? They called the police.
They did.
And Leslie sat there and argued for a minute. She's like, wait a minute. I'm just trying to deliver. Do I look threatening to you? I just want to give this to the chief medical examiner.
She's politically threatening to them. That's right.
And she goes, we are not accepting it. It has to go to our lawyer. Who's our lawyer? You need to figure that out. I don't know who our lawyer is. I'm calling the police. And they did. So by the time they get back out to their car is surrounded by police, armed, that prevent them from leaving, right? The whole thing. I mean,
how many years
ridiculous.
Later?
12.
And they're still... So, the whole conspiracy thing, I mean, it's hard not to see that there's something going on, Gavin.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
This isn't just a hit and miss thing where, every once in a while she gets some weird response. This is, I mean, that's an escalation that is absolutely unnecessary.
Dude, and
unless you have something really
this.
Nasty to hide.
I don't think the Buffalo police are party to this conspiracy. I don't.
Yeah,
I think that they tried to do their job.
Yeah.
And I told Mary Evans that, and she said, I appreciate that. And I told her, I think that once the autopsy report came in, I think that put the brakes on the investigation. And she kind of corrected me. She's like, I wouldn't characterize it like that. Look at the files. You'll see that I worked on this for years. I was like, so
really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
She's right.
Wow.
They did.
Wow.
She did. But anyway, and the police that were called on Leslie, they were nothing but professional.
Yeah.
They were professional about the whole thing. They didn't know what they were coming into.
Yeah.
right? And they talked with Leslie.
They're just called by a local government agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now look, Leslie decided, I think the place that I need to go to is the health commissioner's office, because they oversee the medical
And
examiner's
did she say that out
office.
loud, by the way?
I think she did say it
That's
out
what it
loud,
is,
because when she got there,
Right.
there were armed police at the door saying, "You may not come in." But there was one police officer who, I won't mention his name or his title.
Mm-hmm.
He told everybody to stand down. It's like he recognized her and said, "Leslie, come in." Yeah. And he accepted delivery of that letter. So kudos to that officer,
Yes.
who I won't name.
Doing the right thing.
But he did the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think that in a police force, you know, if somebody orders you to not let somebody into the building, that's what they do. Well, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't blame them either. I think this goes way higher than that. It goes way higher than that front desk woman. It goes, you know. So
yeah, because she was helpful until she was ordered not to be.
Right.
And
yeah.
Anyway,
well, we'll be featuring that with all the details, and we'll probably interview Leslie to get her side of it.
Yeah.
So this Amanda case keeps on going, everybody. If you've been following it, it's just it's never ending. So, but we are. I mean, I'm optimistic. I don't know about you. I think there's a lot of it's going to be a long haul, but I'm optimistic that things are going to get. It's bigger than Leslie now, which is really what needed to happen.
Yeah. I think that the weapon that people use in cases like this to keep them from going forward is just time.
Yeah.
You know, they've been able to hold this off for 12 years. Mm-hmm. Can they hold it off till Leslie just is?
Yeah, it's almost like it's too late for them to back down now. They've made their position known, and but it's going to be their downfall. That's my.
There's
opinion.
Another case that you and I are aware of that is now 30 years old that the family is still fighting.
Yes.
On this.
Mm-hmm.
30 years.
Yep.
And I just hope that we're not here in another 18 years.
No, I don't think so.
It's so yeah, they just hope that you'll get down on yourself, that you'll stop trying, that you'll run out of energy, you'll run out of money.
Yep.
You know,
or someone will die. I mean, they're honestly they're digging their heels in to any of those conclusions that, you know, whatever works for them. But I think that we're making enough noise. We're gathering, you know what I'm talking about when I say that we're gathering the right people around us to help make this bigger, right? And and we'll describe that later. But but I think it's gotten bigger than the, you know, Erie County Medical Examiner and anybody else who's pulling their strings or pressuring them. I think it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's becoming a giant snowball. And I'm glad to see it happen. I hope they are. You know, we've had a few people we won't name that their theory, you know, they're in the Buffalo area and know of all of this, and their theory is that I think the quote was that the DA's office and the medical examiner's office are crapping their pants right now.
Yeah.
And that response that Leslie got sure does seem to lend credibility to that statement.
But we've got that evidence now delivered. Now we're preparing, because we know that they'll ignore it. We know that they won't move on it. They haven't moved on it in 12 years.
No.
So
semantics.
We're preparing that Article 78, and we're going to force them. We'll basically file a lawsuit against the district attorney's office, the medical examiner's office, and the Buffalo PD.
Yeah.
Force them to investigate that.
Yep.
And like I said, I don't think the Buffalo PD deserves it. I think they want to solve cases, but we have to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The politics of things definitely can mess things up, and it you know, while I understand it, I don't appreciate it when things are you know, when the right thing is not done.
And you and I seem to see that more often than not these days. Mm-hmm. Of course, we're going to, because we're looking into cold cases.
Yes.
But you know, in my heart of hearts, I think that most police investigators are like Joe Cephalou, our in-house retired detective. Mm-hmm. I think they want to solve these things. I think
I thought you were going to say they had giant mustaches.
They have the most amazing beard. No, they're like, they care, right?
Yeah.
I think, but because we're dealing with cases that with special circumstances, we're just kind of running into the worst of these bureaus.
Yeah, and the other one we're dealing with is a that will be, you know, bring it to light soon enough. It's a different kind of politics. It's a we don't want to get our hands dirty on that one because they're taking care of it kind of a thing, and so we don't want to get involved. And nobody wants to get their hands dirty,
And they know that there's a murderer walking free.
That's correct, and that's the thing, like we talked about. I mean, as a citizen of the state that this particular case that we're talking about is in, it really bothers me. If the rumors are true that there were political aspirations that were placed in front of the right thing to do and putting a murderer behind bars, boy, that bothers me.
Yeah.
Sorry. Police work is dirty.
Hey,
not just I meant dirty, meaning like the stuff that they have to do is not clean. That there are cases that aren't fun. I didn't mean the police were dirty. I didn't want to make sure I clarified that.
Correct. But they're actually, Rick, that is the reoccurring theme here. Is it's usually not the police. It is the other bureaus that are involved that stymie their hard work.
This is one of those unlike the Reagan era politics. This does trickle down.
Hey, listen, as a student of economics, Reagan was right.
We're not in the same room or we'd be arm wrestling right now. But you know what I'm saying? It does trickle down to where it becomes, I think, like with the medical examiner's office, I think when it starts that high and it becomes part of the norm, right? You just go with it. And it, I don't know.
You know what? Let's talk about, we're not going to talk about that case. But Rick, tell us what you learned this week about kind of what journalists have to do in order to learn how to get the system to, I guess, deliver information that they're legally obliged to deliver.
Right. There are public records in cases, and when the whatever agencies are involved are, basically circling the wagons and trying to create a shield so that the public doesn't get the information and the facts either in a timely manner or ever, right? There are journalist tricks and they're not really tricks. They're just ways to get that information when it should be readily available to the press, which is, that's the whole reason why those things are deemed public, right? Is it's Correct. Supposed to be public. It's supposed to be available to the public. And so there are tricks that the law agencies, could be police, could be district attorney's office, that kind of thing. And they play these tricks that make it more difficult for the general public to find information. And it was like a revelation for you and I. We went, oh, well, that helped. I don't want to say exactly what it was, but, but it is interesting.
Let me say exactly one of the dirty tricks that bureaus will do, though. Yeah. Let's say that I'm in whatever, Podunk County, Podunk State, whatever, right? And there is an egregious crime that you don't want anybody ever to get information on. They will go to neighboring Podunk County and they will do all of their filing over there.
Right. Because nobody's watching.
And so when somebody does a public records request over in Podunk County number 1,
they don't find anything.
They can say, we have nothing.
Which is what happened to us, right? We were looking for warrants and we found one from 2 years later. It wasn't related to the case that we were working on. And a new journalist friend of ours, like my new best friend, she kind of informed, well, you're looking in the wrong county. I went, what?
What do you mean we're looking at, no, this is the right county. Yeah.
That opened a lot of eyes for us. And that was a revelation.
Yeah. And there's another trick that I'm doing in the Amanda Wienckowski case. I'll just put it out there. Okay.
Yeah.
So Amanda's autopsy report was signed by 4 MEs, and everybody who we talked to goes, I've never seen anything signed by 4 MEs. Yep. And the defense over in Erie County is, no, we sign these things like this all the time, right? Well, I can't get all the autopsies from, I thought, okay, let me get all the autopsies from, let's say, January 2008 to January 2009. Amanda's came out February of 2009. So that way I can look at every single autopsy and see, right? Okay. No, I can't get all those because I lack standing in many cases because I'm not next of kin. all that stuff, and not enough time has passed for it to be public and everything. But you know what is public record? It's the invoices that the Erie County Medical Examiner's office generates every time they create an autopsy, and that is public record. And so when I contact the county controller, he's like, sure.
Yeah.
And it has the information on who signed the autopsy on the invoices.
Who and how many who's.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just, we're learning a lot here, Rick.
Yeah. I mean, we were pretty resourceful guys to begin with, but we're learning a whole new, area of resourcefulness that pretty
and
mind-boggling.
people like your new best journalist friend and other friends in the Buffalo area that have kind of guided us on this sort of stuff. We never would have been able to move any of this without them. We really appreciate it.
Well, and those are, again, like you were saying earlier, you were alluding to that people like Joe Seffler, there are good people out there who want to do the right thing, but they also don't want to slit their own throat, so to speak, either politically or career-wise. But given the opportunity, like handing the information off to us or advising us, that's a way for them to do the right thing or to help, because it's been eating them up.
And I can understand, like I can't speak for Leslie, but from the things that she said, I can understand her point of view that everybo's against her. 12 years of fighting. Yeah. It feels like the world's against you, right? Yeah. But we're finding that most people in those bureaus on a personal level are good people and want to help. And but they won't throw away their career over one little case. And I do understand that. That's right. Yeah. I do understand that. It's not the right thing, but I do understand it. But then again, it's like, look, that's the business you got in, and they're probably not warned of that in school. They should have a class on that, on an ethics class on getting into politics. Yeah. But pretty terrible. Yeah. I think we got some other cases coming up here in the near future that people will be interested in. To say the least. If you like what it is that we're doing, here's our shameless plug of the podcast. Yep. Please either go to our website and buy something from our merch store that would help us financially to do this. But our new thing. Or you can join our Patreon. Yes. Explain what Patreon is, because before we start doing all this, I mean, most people aren't aware of it unless they're big podcast fans. Yeah, so Patreon is a service that allows people like us, podcasters and YouTubers, people who are working hard to get good content out, or people who are trying to solve crimes like us, or people who are doing good things that you just can't monetize, right? It's very difficult to monetize things. Patreon makes it possible where you could go in there and say, you know what, I'm going to monetarily support these guys because I like what it is that they're doing. Right. And it's kind of like crowdfunding in a sense. We give you perks. So in our case, if you go in and you become one of our patrons, we'll give you access to files and photos that we don't give access to other people. We're doing live Q&As. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can't get otherwise. And just to give you an idea, I mean, some of the people that we've discussed this with they're people who, a friend of mine, I don't know if you saw that thread, Gavin, but a friend of mine wanted to support the Amanda Wienckowski case, and she ordered a shirt and said, don't send the shirt. I just want to help support the family. Well, this is another way to help do that. I mean, honestly, it may not be going directly to the cases, but the stuff that we do are helping these families. This is it's not just a podcast entertaining people. We're actually doing things. I mean, if you had any idea the type of work that we do 7 days a week on these cases, and we're talking to the families. I mean, how many hours have you spent on the phone with Leslie on this case? I don't know, but one of the people that we're working with on a project, it's the same project, but it'll come to light later. Those people, we're on hour-long or 2-hour-long meetings, sometimes 3 times a day. Yes. And so just from the bottom of our hearts, guys, we love doing this. We started doing it because we love doing this, but we also need to feed our families. And if you want to help us to do this and still, survive, you could buy a T-shirt or a mug, or you could go to Patreon and become a patron for like $5 a month. It's as little as $5 a month. I mean, you don't have to spend a ton of money. We're not trying to make it sound crazy. Yeah. The other thing that you can do, we totally understand we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's wreaked economic havoc on everybody. We totally get it. Another way that you can support us without putting any money into it is going to our YouTube channel and watching the videos, hitting the like button, and subscribing. That helps get those videos out to more people. The more people see it, the more movement we make on these cases.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the beauty of what we do. And we say that all the time, but I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah. So
the more eyeballs, the more these cases move. And we're proving that month by month.
So however you decide to support us,
yeah.
or if you don't decide to support us, we really appreciate you listening and watching.
Yep.
And we'll keep you up to date next week on what we do this week.
Sounds good. Okay. Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks, Rick. See ya.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin podcast. Please subscribe to keep up to date with the cases that we feature. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin, and you can find us on virtually all social media. You can find out more information about our channel and the things that we're up to by visiting our website, solvecrimes.tv.